Hey there, Wastelanders. Ryan with War Games News Radio here, and in this video we're going to be talking all about the Fallout 2D20 role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment. Now, while Modiphius already has an RPG game mode available for Fallout Wasteland Warfare, the 2D20 system is a little bit different in that it's more of your traditional role-playing game as opposed to an adventure war game like Fallout Wasteland Warfare is. Now, pre-orders for this game system have been open since about April, but I wanted to get to know a little bit more about this system, so I sat down and had a chat with Sam Webb from Modiphius, and he walked me through character creation, weapon crafting, how to spend action points, and a whole lot more. So let's get to it and find out a little bit more about Fallout 2D20. Maybe you can describe, sort of in a nutshell, how that 2D20 system works and how it might be sort of similar or different to some other RPG game modes out there, because it's pretty unique, and from what I've seen, it looks like a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, well, essentially, the 2D20 system is a roll under system. So you're looking to roll low, lower is better. And you're essentially rolling a pool of D20s, and each one that comes up equal or lower than your little target number there, based off of your stats, is a success for you when you're trying to do anything. And if you get more successes than you actually need, you can also change that into momentum. You can save that up and you can spend it for lots of cool narrative bonuses or taking additional actions in the case of Fallout, the role-playing game, they're actually action points. And so, yeah, you can use them to take more actions or buy more D20s to roll. So you're rolling anything from 2 dice to 5 dice, depending.
Wow, that's pretty wild. So it looks like you're able to use that sort of that momentum and action points there to sort of really change how the story goes. It looks like it's a really collaborative game mode. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how the players and sort of the game master or overseer, I guess in this case, would interact with one another using that momentum and how that can sort of change how things go.
Yeah, so the Game Master can very often use their action points to introduce new complications to a scene. They can also use them to empower their NPCs' actions, to deal more damage, take more actions, or again, just roll more dice. And so there's a natural kind of mechanical heightened stakes involved in a role. You know, if I'm a GM and I say, well, you know, it's difficulty 4 this task, you know that, well, man, okay, well, my target number's like 8, so I better buy some D20s so that I can get enough successes, right? And so one of the things you can do, one of the particular interactive things that you can do is if you don't have enough action points saved up in your little group pool, what you can do is you can say instead, well, I'll tell you what, GM, I will generate for you another couple of action points. So you get a couple, I don't give them to you from our pile, but you generate a couple. And that means that later on, the GM has a little bit more power to introduce new cool things to the story or empower their NPCs.
Right.
So it's kind of a bargaining situation you've got going on as well.
It's interesting, and that seems a lot different from, you know, whether it be sort of Dungeons and Dragons or you know, Pathfinder, sort of those sort of systems where it's still collaborative in a way, but you know, this feels like it has a little bit more of give and take, which sounds like it's going to lend itself to some pretty neat storytelling. Maybe you can speak a little bit about how, you know, compared to the Wasteland Warfare RPG system, you know, how sort of the mechanics, I guess, or maybe not the mechanics, but how the actual gameplay differs, and if there's any similarities there as well.
Well, there's a similarity in the sense that most mainstream tabletop role-playing was kind of born out of wargaming. You know, D&D came out of chainmail, which came out of various war games around in the 60s and 70s at the time. And so the kind of combat aspect of the Fallout 2D20 role-playing game shares some similarities in terms of its rounds and turn-based kind of mode of play. The fact that you have a certain number of actions, you have a minor action and a major action, and obviously, as I said before, spending more action points allows you to take more actions depending on the cost. And so it shares similarities in that sense with Wasteland Warfare. Obviously, there are a fair amount of kind of pre-described, I guess, actions, but just, a few actions that detail out what you can do, such as stuff like aiming or taking a chem or making an attack and stuff like that. But then there's also, a fairly kind of loosely defined option for just, making a test. So if there's anything that you want to do that the GM decides, well, this has some weight to it, or, it has some importance in the story, or it's dangerous, I'm going to make you roll for that. So that's going to take your major action to do. But then in more kind of free-form play, when you're just out exploring the wasteland, or if you're just scavenging, or if you're just telling a part of the story and you're not in combat and you don't have to delineate between people's turns, you're much freer to just describe what you want to do, and describe the environment that's taking place in. Real nice bit of storytelling, and then describe what you want to do, and then that's up for the GM to be the arbiter to decide, well, I think that's I was going to say strength, that's so obvious, that's an intelligence plus hacking check, or that's an endurance plus survival check, or something like that. And then they determine the difficulty, and then you make the roll, and then there's fundamental kind of success and failure task resolution. So either you succeed, and so you do what you were going to set out to do, and the GM and yourself can narrate that kind of thing together, or you fail, and the GM maybe introduces some kind of consequence of that failure. So you maybe want to try and barter with somebody, and the fact that you failed means that actually, well, they don't like you much anymore, or something like that. And then there are some other mechanical things you can do in the way of introducing complications to a scene, like that do complicate your future as a wasteland explorer. And so there's a good mix, I think, of mechanical storytelling elements, and also some turn-based gameplay and action as well.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the I was about to say factions. I got to get my head into the new game. Some of the different characters and the different types that you can be or become when you're playing Fallout 2D20.
Yeah, obviously we had to focus on Fallout 4 and the kind of Fallout 76 aesthetic, as that's Bethesda's most developed version of the IP. And is currently the style with which to follow. And so we did a lot of that in terms of the setting material, and so a lot of the NPCs that you'll find will come out of Fallout 4 in particular, or those games. But I was very conscious, and I wanted to make sure that we could also accommodate for players who wanted to take it back to the roots of Fallout 1, Fallout 2. And so those kinds of characters are still present in the game, even though we're not, dog whistling or flag posting those particular characters. So as player characters, being able to play super mutants who aren't just, run and gun, shooting like super mutant types. Yeah. Being able to play ghouls as well has always been a massive thing for Fallout fans, like myself, who, we'll play through the main quest, we'll play through a main storyline, and then be looking for that mod, which is random start, or you are just a wastelander with a spanner kind of job, right? Yeah. And so and even playing a Mr. Handy robot, which I think was a great nod to like having Codsworth as a companion, which I did for my first playthrough for so long in Fallout 4. But also the fact that they are like a key robot personality from way back when as well, that we gave players those options, and we allowed them to explore those kinds of character origins. I don't think I would have done myself justice as a Fallout fan if I'd said you can only play Vault Dwellers. Right, off you go. Like, I just think I would have hated that. So why would I do that?
The focus on gear and crafting that the system has as well. It seems like a pretty big focus in the game on the equipment. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and how important it is to keeping your gear up to snuff when you're playing Fallout 2D20.
Yeah, well, I think the experience of playing Fallout is as much about the stuff that you're able to acquire and the gear that you outfit yourself with as your stats are, as your special ability attributes or your skills. Because it, defines how weedy you are, or how much damage you can take, as well as just as well as your stats. The prime example is power armor that in the video game RPG, it actually buffs your special stats, and we did some that we transposed that over to the tabletop role-playing game. We did a little bit of that when it came to the power armor frame and stuff like that. And so I always knew that it would be an important aspect of the game. It was more of a subconscious choice, I think, that we ended up with so many tables, so many listings for all the equipment and stuff. And we really tried our best to maintain, I think, what people's expectations are going to be from transposing for the recent Fallout additions to the tabletop, whilst also trying to simplify it just that little bit to streamline it for tabletop play, because we are not calculators and computers. We ourselves as players, we do not remember all the little modifiers and all the little bits that we need to do. So we found during development that we were able to, I think at least, refine some things to say, well, actually pretty much most, if not all, small guns all take these kinds of magazine mods, or they all take this other mod or whatever. And then one of the other things we wanted to do in terms of the crafting aspect of that was allow people to make those mods, make those things, because that's something that I think took a while for Fallout 4 at least to introduce, maybe as DLC. I think I played it with a mod maybe the second time around, so that I could actually make stuff. But then I think I know, like, particularly in Fallout 76 as well, like you can make like pipe rifles, you can make pipe guns and that kind of thing. So we wanted to make sure that you also had the agency to make those things, rather than just kind of arbitrarily locking it off like a computer RPG might, Right. And that's kind of one of the key things for us. One of the key things I think for tabletop games is giving the players tools to use, but not telling them necessarily exactly how to use them or what to do with them.
Going back to those sort of different characters, that sort of thing, maybe we can talk a little bit about some of those archetypes, for lack of a better term,
Sure.
or why maybe someone would want to maybe choose to be more of a scavenger type over the Brotherhood of Steel, whether that's from the narrative sort of choices to the gear that you start out with, that sort of thing.
Tabletop games aren't definitely not as balanced as war games have to be. Or as maybe board games and stuff that work in a slightly more confined way in the terms of like the number, like the actions you can take and the things you can actually do. And so you need to have that freedom, but so that kind of means that, like, of course there's a meta choice for what origin you should take and what background it synergizes with, and you get all this kind of shiny stuff at level 1 or whatever. Right. But there are some really fun narrative choices in there for when you're picking your origin, and then what equipment pack you're gonna, get with that. And that can involve some trinkets that you can put together, and you can even randomly roll from a table. But it also includes cool stuff like you have a Brahmin.
Cool.
See the NPC section for the Brahmin, so like you get some really fun choices that way too, rather than just thinking, okay, well, what's the most effective gun I can have? What's the most effective piece of armor I can have? Right. It's actually thinking about, okay, well, but where did that weapon come from? How did I get my toolkit? Who did I have to kill to get my armor? And actually, it's more about digging into those character choices and reflections than it is necessarily about, picking your best stat, picking your best equipment.
Pre-orders have been, up for like less than a week now, I think. But lots of different options as far as what folks can get as far as the different packages. It seems the base thing you need to get into the game is that core rule book. But what are some of the other options that you folks have available when looking to pick up these pre-order packs?
Yeah, there are essentially kind of two things to look out for. One, like you said, the core rulebook is the thing that you absolutely need in order to play the game. It gives you all the rules that you need to play, all of the character creation rules and all the equipment and stuff, and then all the NPCs and all the guidance for the Game Master. So there's that, and it comes with a really, really beautifully designed Vault 111 kind of back of the jumpsuit as the cover. But then there is also the GEC edition, which is our limited edition run of essentially like box sets that then also contain a special edition cover of the core rulebook. That will be a really beautiful leatherette with some kind of silk screen stamping in yellow. And it will have some debossing as well on it. So it will be kind of punched in into the leatherette. And it will be reactive too, so it will have a certain distinctive kind of different color to it.
Very cool.
As well. So that goes into the actual GEC box, which we've modeled off one of those Vault-Tec trunks you see around Vaults sometimes. And inside there, you'll not only will you open it up, you've also got like a printed panel of what the GEC interior usually looks like from that briefcase that you see from back in like Fallout 3, maybe Fallout 2 even as well. But it contains a set of dice as well. It contains a set of Nuka-Cola caps, because of course it should. And it also contains effectively what is the GM's toolkit. You've got some rules reference sheets to have to pass around as well for players. That also actually contains some like punch-out kind of card caps that you can use for action points.
Okay, neat.
Which is part of the GM's toolkit. It also contains a booklet of additional rules and guidance for GMs. Stuff like navigating the Wasteland, generating random locations, all of that kind of cool stuff.
That's part of the fun of role-playing games, is never knowing what you're gonna run into. So, you know, having some random encounters, which are, you know, one of my favorite things in Fallout. That's pretty great. Another thing I saw in the pre-orders there was the sort of those Vault-Tec looking die or dice. Yeah. That's the right plural to use. So I mean, are those I guess required to play the game, or can you play them with any D20s or D6s as well?
Yeah, you can play them with any D20s and D6, but these offer a custom choice for people who want to collect them. But also the combat dice that we use, whilst you can use a regular D6 and effectively just kind of transpose the results from a table that we've got in the rulebook, the custom faces are a lot easier to reference and read because they just show you what your result is. So the actual combat dice that we use in the game have 6 faces, but effectively have 3 different results. A 1, which is 1 damage, a 2, which is 2 damage, 3 and 4 are blank, and then you have 2 effects, which are the Vault Boy heads that you see on the dice.
Okay.
So when you roll an effect on one of your combat dice, which is basically your damage dice often for your weapon, that will also trigger the weapon's damage effects. So you can have stuff like persistent. So, you know, you might have a flamethrower that sets people on fire, and that's persistent damage. You might have vicious damage. It might be a particularly vicious weapon, in which case those heads don't just count for 1 damage, they count for 2 damage.
Okay, wow.
And stuff like that. So you can play around a bit with kind of the weapon qualities that they have. And that actually comes up based on the roll.
Very cool, very cool. So now those pre-orders are available now, and you can get that PDF by buying them. But sort of any idea when those physical, and the books look really cool, when those are going to actually start to ship? When might be actually looking to have those either in stores or when people will be able to get them through their mail?
Got me on the line now, haven't you? Yeah. So what I will say, so they're still in production. We'll have more news when we know it for sure. I don't want to mislead customers with like a promise of a certain month or whatever. So, but we are looking to ship in the summer, so it shouldn't be too much longer now.
You know, is there going to be anything that, you know, fans can look forward to as far as you know, seeing some additional content online or any sort of like live plays, anything like that you guys have planned coming up?
Yeah, we want to put together a stream or 2 of it to show it off. So we're looking internally about putting a little kind of 2-shot maybe, or a 1-shot together.
Oh, cool.
Then in terms of other products, I think we've mentioned but not talked too much about a starter set that should be coming out, which, much like the Star Trek starter set, which is just behind me there, will give you little booklets and stuff, and we'll kind of teach you the game will give you some pre-generated characters and a quest line for you to follow to kind of kick things off. And then from there, you can get the core rulebook and take your characters on if you want to, or create new ones. And then we're looking at other supplementary material, kind of quest line material, but also hopefully some setting material. But at the moment, we're just kind of putting the starting gun to that, and obviously talking to Bethesda about what we can do.
Sam, that's more or less all I wanted to ask you about as far as the game system goes. Any sort of other resources, that sort of thing, folks should be could look into or should look into?
Online on the Modiphius YouTube channel, I think we have just a custom URL that's just Modiphius after YouTube. You can find some instructional videos, with me in front of the camera again, about the very basics of 2D20, and that will tell you a fair amount of the basics for any of our games, really, with using the 2D20 system. So they're good. You can check out the other kind of big releases or big lines that we have for the 2D20 game that are coming out this year. Is Dune as well. So that will be releasing in the summer as well, ahead of the movie release. And we're really looking forward to that because that's done really well for us as well, and there's a huge amount of hype for that game. PDF's available right now, and then, as I said, physical books and products and stuff are all going to be shipping in the summer. And then, one close to my heart is Star Trek Adventures. It's the one I kind of started managing when I started at Modiphius, and so I think it's a really, really, really cool game. So check it out if you're a Star Trek fan, because it's well worth it, I think.
That's awesome. Well, Sam, thanks so much for giving sort of an intro to the game. Very much looking forward to getting those books and to getting role playing out there in the Wasteland. Thanks so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Fallout 2D20 in a nutshell. If you're looking for a more in-depth way to roleplay in the Wasteland, then this just might be the game system for you. I know I'm personally really excited to get my hands on this rulebook, so definitely keep an eye out for some 2D20 content coming to WGNR in the very near future. As mentioned, pre-orders are available now through the Modiphius website for this game system, or of course you can do some pre-orders through your local game store retailers as well. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow us on Instagram, and join our Discord as well to stay up to date on the latest reviews, news, and battle reports from WGNR. Stay tuned. War Games for News Radio will be back.